"My brother isn't dead. He's in the freezer," the boy said, and no one believed him. What happened next is terrifying. In a town drowned by incessant rain, Liam, a 9-year-old boy, frail in appearance and marked by a deep weariness, walked alone through the night towards the central police station. Soaked, dressed in worn and oversized clothes, his face wore a blank expression and dark circles, testifying to a distress unusual for a child. When he entered the station, the warm but worn-out atmosphere contrasted with the cold outside. Trembling and hesitant, he approached the front desk where an officer, lost in his routine, did not notice him immediately. Liam, on the verge of speaking, seemed to carry an immense weight, ready to reveal a terrifying truth. "My brother isn't dead. He's in the freezer." The officer finally looked up, surprised by this incongruous sound in the relative calm of the station. He saw the child, this small human wreck, and his expression was tinged with annoyance mixed with a vague professional pity. Another lost or runaway kid, he thought, or maybe the victim of a parental dispute. "Yes, Sonny, are you lost?" he asked, putting down his pen with a small, resigned sigh. His voice was neutral, worn out by years of insignificant stories and trivial complaints. Liam opened his mouth. His chapped, pale lips trembled. A breath escaped, barely more audible than the hum of the sleeping computers on the desk. My brother." The word was torn out, painful. He's in the freezer. He's still breathing, I think." The whispered phrase fell into the air like a pebble in an oily pond. The officer squinted, incredulous. He tilted his head to the side, as if to better catch a sound that made no sense. "What's that?" he asked, a little louder, a hint of impatience in his voice. "Can you repeat that, kid? Louder." "The freezer." Liam then raised his blue eyes, those eyes too old in that too young face, to the man in uniform. He took a deep breath, as if drawing from the depths of his icy insides the strength to utter the unspeakable. And this time, the words came out, clear, sharp, chilling like shards of glass. "He's at our house, in the garage. She put him there, so we'd forget him. She says he was adopted, but it's a lie. It's not true. He's there in the garage, in the freezer. I swear." The she vibrated in the air, charged with a bitterness and a terror so palpable that the officer shivered despite the stifling heat of the room. This was not a whim. It was not a fabrication. The conviction in the boy's hoarse voice, the total absence of hesitation, of that fantasy peculiar to children who invent stories, began to erode the officer's wall of skepticism. That fixed, broken gaze was not that of a child at play. It was the look of a witness to an abomination. The officer leaned forward slightly, his annoyance gone, replaced by a sudden, tense attention. "Who is she, son? Who put your brother in there?" Liam clenched his fists, digging his dirty nails into his sweaty palms. His voice became an even lower whisper, almost a breath, but loaded with an unspeakable horror. "Clara, my stepmother." There was a silence. Then, as if the story cost him less than the mere mention of her name, Liam added, in a flat, monotonous tone, devoid of all emotion, as if commenting on the weather, "My father is dead too, but he's not the one who killed himself." The sentence, thrown out with this cold distress, this terrifying detachment, definitively tipped the situation into a nightmare. The officer felt an icy chill run down his spine. This calm in the evocation of death and frost. This was no longer a story of a lost child. It was a window opened onto a domestic hell. The officer, whose comfortable routine had just been shattered by the weight of this too heavy truth, grabbed the receiver of his telephone with a brusque gesture, his fingers trembling slightly. "Captain Du Bois? Morel at the front desk here. You need to come down. Immediately. It's urgent. A child. He's saying things." His voice broke. "Impossible things. But I think he's telling the truth." 3 years earlier, Clara had appeared in Thomas and Liam's life like a ray of sunshine after an endless period of grayness. After a painful divorce from Liam's mother, Thomas, a gentle and somewhat lost man, an engineer at a small local company, struggled to rebuild a stable life for himself and his 6-year-old son. Liam, already withdrawn and sad since his mother's departure, had walled himself up in a worrying silence. Clara was an apparition. She was a discreet but always elegant woman. She seemed perfect, well-dressed, calm, smiling, and gentle with everyone. In the eyes of those around her, she represented balance and tranquility, as if she had brought peace to a family that had known difficult times. "Thomas, you found a rare pearl," a colleague had told him at a company party where Clara had shone with discretion and intelligence. She knew how to listen, make people laugh with an appropriate anecdote, and compliment the boss's wife on her dress with disarming sincerity. Everyone saw Clara as a perfect stepmother, gentle, involved, always there for Liam, and very active in the neighborhood. She projected the image of a caring and organized woman, a true role model. But behind the walls of the house, the reality was very different. Clara was cold, authoritarian, obsessed with silence and control. She imposed a very harsh discipline on Liam, with severe punishments for the slightest deviation. Liam was afraid of her. He tried to talk to his father, Thomas, but he refused to see the truth. Tired and blinded by Clara's perfect image, he thought his son was exaggerating. Yet, little by little, doubts began to sprout in his mind due to certain strange details in Clara's behavior. One day, while looking for photos in the attic, Thomas accidentally discovered a hidden bag while concealed behind old furniture. It was the beginning of an unexpected revelation. He opened the bag, and Thomas's world turned upside down. Inside, a jumble of papers. But not just any papers. Passports. Several of them. All with Clara's photo, smiling or serious. But with different names. Sophie Laurent, Isabelle Dubois, Anne-Marie Roux, various nationalities. Recent issue dates. Visas for distant countries. Photos of children. Dozens. Boys, girls of all ages, of all origins. Some smiled shyly at the camera. Others had lost, frightened, empty eyes. Unknown children. Scrawled notes with names, approximate dates of birth, physical descriptions, sums of money, large sums. Black notebooks filled with columns of numbers, incomprehensible codes, city names, dates, phone numbers. A cryptic, secret language that smelled of danger and illegality. Thomas remained frozen, sitting in the dust of the attic, the documents scattered around him like evidence of a crime. A wave of cold washed over him, more chilling than the damp air of the attic. The image of the perfect woman, the devoted partner, cracked with a sinister sound, revealing unfathomable depths. "Who are you, Clara?" The question burned in his mind. "What have you done? What are you doing?" An icy intuition, stronger than reason, crossed his mind. This woman was not who she claimed to be. She was a predator, a danger, to him, to Liam. That evening, dinner was torture. Silence reigned, heavy, thick as tar. Liam ate in silence, head bowed, feeling the storm brewing. Clara was perfectly correct, but her gaze, when it met Thomas's, was as hard as steel. A silent warning. Thomas pushed his half-full plate away. "I have a headache. I'm going to bed early." Liam, to bed in 10 minutes. As soon as Liam's bedroom door closed, Thomas stood up. He took the canvas bag he had hidden behind the sofa and went to the living room where Clara was flipping through a magazine, looking detached. He threw the bag onto the glass coffee table with a sharp thud. The papers scattered, revealing their compromising content. "What is this, Clara?" His voice was low, hoarse, charged with contained anger and fear. "I found this in the attic. Passports, photos of children, notebooks with codes. Who the hell are you? What are you up to?" Clara did not flinch. She showed no surprise, no fear. She slowly put down her magazine, her movements reptilianly fluid. She bent down, picked up one of the passports in the name of Sophie Laurent, and opened it to the photo page. A strange, almost nostalgic smile brushed her lips. Then she looked up at Thomas. Her smile was gone. Her eyes, usually such a light blue, had become dark, cold, ruthlessly calculating slits. The dim light from the lamp accentuated the shadows on her face, giving it the appearance of a mask. "What you don't understand, Thomas." Her voice was a soft, almost caressing whisper, but it flowed like venom. can very easily get you killed. The threat was clear, absolute. It hung in the air, palpable, icy. Thomas felt his blood freeze in his veins. He understood, in that precise moment, that he had lifted a corner of the veil on an abyss he should never have approached, and that Clara was not a woman to be threatened in vain. He was in danger. Mortal danger. The following night was the longest of Thomas's life. He stayed awake, sitting in the darkness of his room, listening to every creak of the old house, every breath of the wind outside. He thought about running away, taking Liam and disappearing. But where? With what? And how to escape a woman who seemed to master the art of concealment and possessed multiple passports. The next morning, it was Liam who discovered his father. He came down for breakfast, drawn by an unusual silence. The kitchen was empty. A grim intuition pushed him towards the basement, a dark and damp place Clara usually forbade them from entering. The door was ajar. He pushed the door open, his heart pounding. Thomas was there, hanging from a low beam by a thick rope. His face was purplish, swollen, his eyes wide open, glassy, staring into the void with a frozen expression of horror. His feet did not touch the ground. A chair was overturned beside him. A hoarse, inhuman scream escaped Liam's throat. He stumbled back, falling onto the cold concrete floor. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the figure swaying slightly in the gloom. Death was there, violent, absurd, and he knew. Hasty footsteps on the stairs. Clara appeared on the threshold in a bathrobe. She cast a brief glance at the body, then at Liam cowering on the floor. Her face remained impassive for a second. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, it broke into an expression of heart-wrenching grief. She brought a hand to her mouth, let out a piercing wail. "Thomas! Oh God, no! Thomas!" She rushed towards the body, pretending to want to support it, her shoulders shaken by convulsive sobs. Why? Why did you do this?" Liam, petrified, watched her act with silent horror. He saw the false distress in her eyes, heard the forced sobs. It was a grotesque, monstrous spectacle. She turned to him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Liam, my poor little boy. Call the police. Quick." The police arrived quickly. Clara, perfectly prepared, gave them the expected story. A depressed Thomas for months, overwhelmed by financial problems he had recently confided in her. Debts, the fear of losing his job, sleepless nights, suicidal remarks made in moments of discouragement. She showed a letter written on Thomas's letterhead, in a shaky and clumsy handwriting, but whose turns of phrase and a few traced letters betrayed a strange resemblance to Clara's, like an imperfect copy. "I can't go on. The weight is too heavy. Forgive me. Take care of Liam." She wept profusely, real crocodile tears, wringing her hands, collapsing into the arms of a sympathetic policewoman. She was the grieving widow, beautiful, fragile, broken by sorrow. She told how Thomas had seemed darker lately, how he had withdrawn. She spoke of Liam, so disturbed by the divorce, and now this, subtly implying that the child might be unstable, that he sometimes made things up. The medical examiner, in a hurry, seeing a suicidal man in a tense family context, a suicide note, a credible widow, did not request a thorough autopsy. No search for signs of struggle, drugs, or signs of strangulation other than the rope. The case was quickly closed. Suicide. Tragic but clear. Clara organized a discreet funeral. She received condolences from neighbors, colleagues, with tragic dignity. She was perfect. The mask of the inconsolable widow was now welded to her face, stronger, more credible than ever. She was the victim. Everyone believed her. Everyone except Liam. Huddled in a corner during the ceremony, he listened to the lies, saw the looks of pity fall on Clara. He remembered the muffled cries coming from the living room last night. A cry for his father, cut short. A dull thud like a body collapsing. Then a dead silence. And in the morning, Clara's look. Empty, calculating, satisfied. Not an ounce of real sadness. His child's heart, bruised but lucid, knew the truth. His father had not killed himself. Clara had killed him. and she had gotten away with it. With Thomas gone, Clara became the absolute master of the house and of Liam. The mask of the grieving widow fell quickly once the door was closed to the outside world. No more need to pretend. The fear that already loomed turned into open and methodical tyranny. Liam became her exclusive target, her toy, her scapegoat. Clara's goal was clear: to break Liam, to reduce him to absolute silence, to make him unrecognizable, untouchable, unbelievable, so that no word he might utter against her would ever find an echo. She began a systematic campaign of denigration and isolation. She spoke to the school principal, the teachers, the school doctor, the neighbors, always with that same air of deep concern, those convincing tears in her eyes. Since Thomas's tragic death, she would sigh, wiping an imaginary tear from the corner of her eye. Liam is lost, completely lost. He makes things up, horrible stories. He says he sees his father at night. He talks about things that don't exist. He accuses people, me sometimes. Her voice trembled with feigned emotion. It's heartbreaking. The psychologist says he has developed a defense mechanism, a denial of a reality that is too harsh. He needs care, a lot of care, and calm. She deprived him of food for the slightest pretext: a poorly wiped plate, a misplaced book, a look she deemed insolent. He often ate alone in his room, a bowl of cold soup or a piece of dry bread. Hunger became a constant companion, a painful emptiness in his stomach. She constantly humiliated him, reproaching him for his clumsiness, his slowness, his inner ugliness. She hit him, always with a diabolical precision that avoided visible areas. Violent pinches on the inside of his arms or thighs, slaps on the top of his head, kicks in his calves. Marks that were not visible under clothes, but which left deep bruises and a throbbing pain. Her punishments were cruelly inventive, locking him for hours in the dark, narrow hallway closet, making him recite entire pages of the dictionary without a mistake under penalty of starting over, forcing him to clean the kitchen floor with a small toothbrush, depriving him of light in his room for days. Each punishment was designed to break his spirit a little more, to reduce him to the state of an obedient and terrified thing. Liam withdrew like an oyster. At school, he had become a ghost. Pale, silent, with downcast eyes, he no longer participated, no longer played. His grades plummeted. The teachers, alerted by Clara and seeing his condition, told themselves that the stepmother was right. The child was deeply disturbed. They offered him reinforced psychological support, but Clara refused with gentle firmness. He already has a follow-up, thank you, and the doctor thinks he especially needs stability at home. Calm. Too much outside stimulation could agitate him further. They acquiesced, powerless and convinced by Clara's apparent devotion. Then came Noah, a little 6-year-old boy with blonde curls and sparkling green eyes. Clara had temporarily taken him in. She explained to the few people who asked questions that he was the child of a distant childhood friend who was in great personal difficulty. She was dedicating herself to helping until the mother got back on her feet. "He's an angel, this little one," she would say with her sweet smile. "It will do Liam good to have a playmate." Noah arrived with a small suitcase. He was shy at first, but soon his cheerful nature resurfaced. He would run around the house, laugh, ask 1,000 questions. Liam, at first suspicious, was overwhelmed by a strange and forgotten feeling: tenderness. Noah was like a ray of sunshine in their night. He followed him everywhere, called him Lily, told him fanciful stories. For the first time in months, Liam managed to smile. He became Noah's silent protector, whispering advice to him to avoid Clara's anger, secretly sharing his meager food rations. But Noah's presence, his noise, his vitality, exasperated Clara to the highest degree. Her gaze became more frequently icy when she observed the little boy. An unhealthy tension set in. Liam felt the danger lurking around Noah like a toxic smoke. One afternoon, Noah, excited by a game, accidentally knocked over a crystal vase that Clara was particularly fond of. The object shattered into 1,000 pieces on the polished parquet floor with an atrocious noise. Time seemed to stand still. Noah froze, his eyes wide with horror, a hand over his mouth. Liam felt his stomach clench. Clara appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her face was deathly pale. Her eyes, a blue that had turned almost black, rested on the debris, then on Noah. Not a word, not a cry, just a silence more frightening than anything. She walked towards Noah with a slow, measured step. The little boy backed away, terrified. It was an accident, stammered Liam, instinctively placing himself in front of Noah. He didn't do it on purpose. Clara ignored Liam. Her gaze was fixed on Noah. She slowly crouched down in front of him. Her voice, when she spoke, was a soft, sinister whisper. You broke my vase, Noah. My beautiful vase. Broken things. She tilted her head to the side, like a bird of prey examining its victim. They must be put in the cold, so they don't rot. She seized Noah's wrist with an iron grip. The little boy screamed with fear and pain. Liam threw himself forward. Leave him alone. No. Clara, with a brutal backhand, sent him flying against the wall. His head hit the baseboard with a dull thud. Dazed, his vision blurred. Liam saw Clara dragging a desperately struggling Noah towards the door at the end of the hall. The garage door, always locked. Forbidden. No, screamed Liam, trying to get up, his head spinning. No. He heard the creak of the key in the rusty lock, then the sharp click of the door opening onto the darkness of the garage. Noah's muffled, desperate cries echoed for a moment, mingled with Clara's low, implacable voice. Then another noise. Metallic. Heavy. The sound of a chest freezer, lid opening. A piercing scream, cut short. Then the dull thud of the lid closing. A final click. Definitive. Then silence. An absolute, thick, terrifying silence. Liam, pressed against the wall, his face wet with tears and blood, remained paralyzed. Broken things, they must be put in the cold. Clara's phrase echoed in his skull like a death knell. He had understood. Horribly understood. The days that followed were a waking nightmare. Clara coldly announced to Liam that Noah was gone. His mother came to get him. She's better. He's been officially adopted now. Abroad. For his own good. A vague, incoherent story, but Clara served it with an assurance that discouraged any questions. To the few neighbors who inquired about the little blonde boy, she answered with a sad sigh. He's gone. An unexpected adoption opportunity abroad. It's better for him. Personal reasons. And she would turn her head away, a handkerchief in her hand, implying a family drama too painful to recount. No one dared to insist. But Liam knew. He knew where Noah was. Every night, once the house was plunged into silence and darkness, he performed his secret ritual. His heart pounding, stifling the sound of his breath, he would slip out of his bed and cross the dark hallway on tiptoe. He would stop in front of the garage door, that massive, thick wooden door locked from the outside. He would press his ear against the cold wood. Nothing. Not a sound. Then he would bring his lips to the crack under the door and whisper as loud as he dared, his voice trembling with hope and terror. Noah? It's me, Liam. I'm here. I won't leave you. I promise. Are you there? Answer me. Please. Only silence answered him. A heavy, icy, absolute silence that seemed to absorb his breath, his hopes. Yet, he repeated his message night after night. A prayer, a promise, a rope stretched towards his little brother of the heart, a prisoner of the cold and the dark. It was his way of fighting against the horror, of not letting Clara erase Noah completely, of not abandoning him. The atmosphere in the house became suffocating. Clara, after the Noah incident, seemed more tense, more paranoid than ever. Her eyes, always moving, darted into every corner, scrutinized every shadow. She jumped at the slightest noise, even a creaking floorboard. She talked to herself in the kitchen, late at night, unintelligible whispers, disturbing snippets of phrases. Must leave soon, agreed price, secure delivery. Too many risks here. The boy talks too much. She systematically searched Liam's room in his absence, turning over his bed, emptying his drawers, inspecting his school notebooks, his drawings. Searching for what? A scribbled note? A plan? Proof of his betrayal? She spent hours locked in Thomas's office, on the phone, whispering encrypted conversations that stopped abruptly as soon as she heard Liam approaching. Liam felt the danger getting closer, palpable like an acrid smell in the air. Clara's gaze, when she laid eyes on him, was no longer just cold or contemptuous. It was evaluative, calculating, as if she were weighing his usefulness, his nuisance, as if she were considering the next step. Annoying things, they must be put in the cold. The phrase echoed like a death sentence. He knew he had become the next annoying thing. His time was running out. Clara was going to put him in the cold. Like Noah, just as she had done with the truth about his father. Fear had become a constant companion, a backdrop to every breath. But another emotion was growing in Liam, nurtured by suffering, by pent-up anger, by the desperate love he had for Noah. A cold, crystalline determination. He couldn't die like this. Not without having tried to save Noah. Not without having denounced Clara. The opportunity presented itself on a stormy night. The wind howled around the house, making the shutters creak and the beams groan. Clara announced that she had to go out. An urgent errand. A personal matter. She put on her coat, checked that all the doors were locked, including the garage door, and cast a final piercing glance at Liam, sitting motionless on the sofa. In bed at 8:30. Not a sound. You know what's waiting for you if you disobey. The front door slammed shut behind her. The sound of her car starting and driving away was swallowed by the howling wind. Liam remained motionless for a long moment, listening to the sounds of the house, which seemed amplified by the storm and his anxiety. Then he stood up. He didn't have a precise plan, just one certainty. He had to get out, go to the police, tell the truth. Everything. He put on his old, torn sneakers. He didn't have a coat suitable for the pouring rain. He took an old scarf of his father's, forgotten in the entryway, and wrapped it around his neck. He had no money, no phone, nothing, just the burning truth in his chest and the image of Noah in the freezer. He turned the handle of the front door. Locked. Clara had taken a key. Panic. He ran to the kitchen, the French door leading to the garden. It was sometimes not closed properly. He pushed the lock, pulled the handle. It gave way with a creak. The wind and the icy rain whipped his face. He didn't hesitate. He slipped outside and gently closed it behind him. He was outside, free, but lost. The night was black, the rain lashing, the wind strong enough to blow the horns off a bull. The city seemed immense, hostile, but he knew where to go. The police station. He had seen the blue flashing lights turning once in the distance. He started to run, running through the deserted, flooded streets under the downpour. A small, frail shadow struggling against the elements, carried by a force that was no longer childish. The instinct for survival, the love for his brother, the hatred of Clara. He ran, stumbling in puddles, slipping on the pavement, blinded by the rain, guided by the distant glow of the city's neon lights and the absolute certainty that he held the truth. A truth that was worth more than his fear, more than his life. Liam's arrival at the police station, soaked, shivering, covered in mud, his blue eyes burning with a strange flame in his waxen face. And his chilling account triggered an immediate and massive response. Captain Du Bois, a taciturn man with the piercing gaze of a hawk, who had seen many things in his 30-year career, sensed the raw, desperate authenticity in the child's words. He initiated an emergency intervention protocol. A few minutes later, several police cars, siren silent but headlights on, sped through the night in the pouring rain towards Willow Street. Du Bois was in the first car. Liam huddled beside him on the back seat, wrapped in a survival blanket, silent, his eyes fixed on the passing road. The child was trembling, but it was no longer from the cold. It was from the anticipation of the horror he was about to face again. The house at number 17 seemed asleep, sinister under the downpour. No lights. The police discreetly surrounded the premises. No sign of Clara. Du Bois, accompanied by 2 officers in bulletproof vests and a door-opening technician, approached the main entrance. Liam had shown them where to find the spare key, under a pot of soaked geraniums. The door opened without a sound. The interior was plunged into darkness, but a strange sensation immediately struck the officers. An absolute silence, but above all, a smell. A smell of aggressive cleanliness, of chemical disinfectant, that barely masked something else, a more acrid, more disturbing trace. Du Bois turned on his flashlight. The beam swept the entrance, the living room, the kitchen. Everything was arranged with an obsessive, almost clinical meticulousness. Not an object was out of place. The furniture gleamed. The floors shone. It was too clean, too tidy. An order that smelled of concealment, of erasure. Garage, Du Bois whispered, pointing to the door at the end of the hallway. They headed towards it. The door was massive, made of solid wood. Locked, not only with the key, but reinforced with an additional sliding bolt, screwed in from the outside. A new, shiny bolt, which was not there the last time the police had come, for Thomas's suicide. A clear signal. The technician got to work. The sound of the crowbar forcing the lock, then that of the wood cracking under the pressure, echoed in the oppressive silence of the house like cannon shots. Liam, who had remained near the entrance with an officer, clutched the blanket tighter around him, closing his eyes for a moment. The door gave way with a final sinister crack. It creaked open onto the darkness of the garage. Du Bois pointed his lamp inside. The smell then hit them with full force. A chemical, sweet, and metallic odor, nauseating, which stung their nostrils and turned their stomachs. The characteristic smell of ether or a powerful volatile anesthetic. The beam of the lamp scanned the cluttered space. Boxes, tools, an old car covered with a tarp. Then it fixed on the object that stood in the center of the garage, isolated like a macabre altar. A large chest freezer, an old, robust model, its white surface covered with a thick layer of frost. Electrical wires ran from a wall outlet to the appliance, which was humming softly. Du Bois approached, his heart pounding. His men followed him, weapons drawn, ready for anything. He took a deep breath, holding it against the smell, and lifted the heavy, frosted lid. The cold that escaped was palpable, an icy blast that enveloped them. The light from the lamp illuminated the interior. The horror they discovered left them petrified for a moment, mute with terror. Huddled up, wrapped in a silver but insufficient survival blanket, lay Noah. His small face was deathly pale, his lips blue, his eyelashes covered with frost. But against all odds, against all logic, a slight mist formed in front of his half-open mouth. He was breathing. Weakly, very weakly, but he was breathing. His frail body was frozen, in severe hypothermia, but alive. Beside him, huddled in another corner of the chest, a small, unknown brown-haired girl, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, was also unconscious, in the same state of icy suspension. On the floor, near the freezer, lay used syringes, vials of labeled chemicals, stained rags, and, scattered like the pieces of a monstrous puzzle, papers, plane tickets to distant destinations, train tickets, children's ID photos, files with names, descriptions, colossal sums of money, foreign phone numbers, coded addresses. The entire file of an organized trafficking operation. "My God," whispered one of the officers, his face contorted. "Call for an ambulance. Immediately. And notify the crime unit. This is huge." Du Bois turned towards the door, where Liam, pale as a sheet, was watching the scene, his immense eyes filled with tears and an indescribable relief. "Your brother is alive, Liam," Du Bois said in a voice hoarse with emotion. "You saved him." The case, now classified as kidnapping, sequestration, endangerment of life, and suspicion of homicide, took on a national, then international, dimension with breathtaking speed. The analysis of the documents seized in the garage revealed the unthinkable. Clara was not Clara Du Bois. Her real name was on an Interpol red list, Elena Volkova. Born in Russia, she had been wanted for years for her involvement in a particularly sophisticated and ruthless international child trafficking network. This network, dubbed the Shadows by European police services, had been operating in the shadows for nearly 15 years. It targeted vulnerable families, or isolated children. Members like Elena/Clara would infiltrate these families, often posing as ideal partners or devoted caregivers, gaining trust before taking action. Their method was chilling. They drugged the children with powerful anesthetics, placed them in a state of controlled hypothermia in modified freezers to maintain a temperature just above freezing, slowing their metabolism to a maximum to make them transportable over long distances without noise or movement. Then they delivered them to intermediaries, to destinations where they were sold for illegal adoption, exploitation, or worse. Thomas had discovered the truth when he found the canvas bag. He had begun to search in secret, terrified. He had contacted an old friend in the police, discreetly, leaving cryptic clues. Elena/Clara had caught him. She had killed him coldly, simulating a suicide with diabolical mastery. Then she had begun a post-mortem smear campaign against him, sowing doubt about his mental health, his stability, to discredit any future revelation, especially Liam's. Noah was not the son of a friend. He had been acquired by the network in another region, waiting to be shipped. The little girl found with him in the freezer was a new victim, abducted 3 days earlier in a neighboring town. Elena/Clara was preparing their imminent transfer when Liam fled. The arrest of Elena Volkova was swift. Alerted, no doubt, by a contact in the police or by her predator's instinct, she had tried to flee to the Belgian border, equipped with a false passport in the name of Isabelle Dubois, a brown wig, and brown contact lenses. She was calm, almost relaxed when she was handcuffed. Her mask had fallen for good, revealing a stone face, impenetrable, without the slightest remorse. She did not utter a word. Her network began to collapse across Europe, thanks to the clues found in the garage and her trace communications. Today, Liam and Noah live together, reunited, far from the rainy city and the red brick house. They have been welcomed by a new adoptive family, the Moreaus, a benevolent and solid couple, surrounded by a large, warm group of siblings. They live near the sea. The air there is salty, invigorating. The cries of seagulls replace the oppressive silences. The reconstruction is slow, very slow. The nights are sometimes haunted by nightmares where the cold and darkness of the garage resurface. Noah has night terrors, wakes up screaming, looking for Liam. Liam, for his part, carries within him a gravity that surpasses his age. But he also laughs sometimes. A real child's laugh, rare and precious, often provoked by one of Noah's antics. They are inseparable, brothers in blood shed in horror, brothers of the heart saved by courage. The Volkova affair made headlines. Liam was called to testify at the sensational trial of Elena, now behind bars for life without the possibility of parole. His simple, direct, overwhelming testimony sealed her fate and helped to definitively dismantle the Shadows network. After a particularly trying but historic hearing, a renowned journalist, moved by the quiet strength of this 10-year-old boy who had faced the unspeakable, intercepted him in the lobby of the courthouse. The cameras were rolling. The microphones were extended. "Liam," the journalist asked, his voice filled with sincere admiration. "After all you've been through, this incredible strength you've had, how did you know, that night, that you had to run, that you had to speak, even when no one around you believed you? What gave you that courage?" Liam raised his blue eyes, those eyes that had seen so much horror, but which now shone with a new light, towards the journalist. He squeezed Noah's hand, who was huddled against him. He thought for a moment, searching for his words with the painful precision of one who has learned that words can save or condemn. Then he answered, in a clear voice that carried through the silent hall, "Because when nobody believes you, the truth gets cold all by itself. And I couldn't let Noah stay in the cold forever." An absolute silence greeted his words. Then a murmur of emotion ran through the crowd of journalists and spectators. This simple, profound sentence, charged with a fraternal love stronger than fear, summed it all up. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it, to protect what matters. Liam had warmed the truth. He had saved his brother. And in doing so, he had vanquished the shadows.